Most of you don't have a motivation problem. You have a weakness problem. You think mental strength is built in some dramatic moment, some big speech, some emotional breakthrough. Wrong. Mental strength is built when you show up on the days you don't feel like it, when nobody is watching, when there's no applause. That's where men are separated from excuses. You've been lied to. You've been told mindset comes first, that confidence magically appears and then you take action. That's backwards. Action builds identity. Repetition builds belief. Showing up daily builds the mind. If you only move when you feel ready, you'll stay average forever. Feelings are for civilians. Discipline is for men who want power. Now let's talk about speaking in tongues. Not religion, not emotion. I'm talking about the language you speak to yourself every single day. Most men speak the language of doubt. I'm tired. I'll start tomorrow. This is hard. That's weakness talking. That's the tongue of the defeated, and you repeat it so often, it becomes your identity. Strong men speak a different language, a private language, a language of certainty. I show up. I execute. I don't negotiate with my lower self. When you repeat that daily through action, not words, you rewire who you are. You don't chant it, you live it. That's real speaking in tongues. It's the internal code of a man who refuses to bow. Every time you show up to train when you're tired, you're speaking power. Every time you work when others scroll, you're speaking dominance. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you're speaking authority. And after enough repetitions, that language becomes permanent. You stop trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined. Most people want transformation without friction. They want the body without the pain, the money without the grind, the respect without the consistency. That's fantasy. Identity is forged through daily confrontation with resistance. You don't become strong by thinking strong thoughts. You become strong by proving to yourself again and again that you do what you said you would do. Here's the truth most people are too fragile to accept. You don't lack potential. You lack standards. You tolerate your own inconsistency. You break promises to yourself and expect confidence to grow. That's delusion. Confidence comes from evidence. Evidence comes from repetition. Repetition comes from showing up daily, whether you like it or not. When you show up daily, you build control. And control is power, not emotional hype, not motivational music. Control. Control over your impulses. Control over your schedule. Control over your excuses. A man who controls himself doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. His presence does the talking. Mental strength is not loud. It's quiet. It's cold. It's calculated. It's the man who trains when injured, works when bored, studies when distracted, and does it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next year. That's dominance, not noise, not flexing, consistency. You want to feel powerful? Stop chasing feelings. Start building proof. Show up daily, even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient, that's when your real identity is decided. Not on easy days, on hard ones. You think you're strong because you had one intense day, one brutal workout, one long grind session, one burst of effort when you felt fired up. That means nothing. One day of intensity does not build mental strength. Repetition does. The quiet, boring, relentless act of showing up again and again when nobody cares, when nobody is watching, when there's no applause and no external reward. That's where real power is built. Comfort is a liar. It whispers that rest is deserved, that skipping one day won't matter, that you can start fresh tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes next week, then next month. Then another year of your life disappears. Most men aren't incapable. They're inconsistent. They don't lack potential. They lack repetition under pressure. They only perform when conditions are perfect. But conditions are never perfect, so they stay average. Mental strength isn't created in moments of hype. It's created in resistance. It's built when you wake up tired and still move, when you don't feel confident and still act, when motivation is gone and discipline takes over. That shift is everything. The moment you stop asking how you feel and start asking what needs to be done, you step into control, and control is power. Repetition rewires your identity. The first time you push through discomfort, it feels forced. The second time, slightly easier. By the 10th time, something changes. You begin to see yourself differently. You're no longer the man who quits when it's inconvenient. You become the man who executes regardless. That transformation doesn't come from thinking differently. It comes from acting consistently until your behavior reshapes your self-image. Most people chase intensity because it feels dramatic, it feels powerful. But intensity without consistency is performance. It's temporary. Real strength is boring. It's predictable. It's doing the same difficult task over and over until it becomes automatic. That's what separates professionals from amateurs. Amateurs rely on emotion. Professionals rely on standards. If you only train when you feel strong, you will never become strong. If your life forward at full set, you will never build focus. Strength is developed under strain. Focus is built in distraction. Discipline is proven when excuses are available and you reject them anyway. Every time you choose action over comfort, you strengthen the muscle of self-control. Every time you choose comfort, you weaken it. There is a brutal truth most people avoid. Your current level of mental strength is a direct reflection of how often you do what you don't feel like doing. Nothing more, nothing less. You can talk about goals all day. You can visualize success. But if your daily behavior is inconsistent, your results will be inconsistent. And deep down, you'll know it. That knowledge erodes confidence faster than failure ever could. Repetition builds internal trust. When you show up daily, you send a message to yourself. I keep my word. That message compounds. It builds certainty. It builds authority over your own mind. Soon you don't need external validation because you have internal proof. You've seen yourself push through too many hard days to doubt your capability. The world doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't reward your potential. It rewards output. And output is the product of daily effort, not occasional intensity. Showing up daily is not glamorous. It won't always feel powerful. But over time, it creates something far more valuable than motivation. It creates stability. It creates resilience. It creates a mindset that does not collapse under pressure. When you commit to repetition, you remove negotiation from your life. There is no debate about whether you train, work, build, improve. You simply do it. That simplicity eliminates weakness. It removes emotional volatility. It turns you into someone who operates on principle rather than impulse. That is mental strength, not noise, not hype. Daily execution, again and again and again. You don't become confident by thinking competent thoughts. You become confident by doing difficult things repeatedly until your brain has no choice but to accept the evidence. That's the part nobody wants to hear. You want identity to change first. You want to feel powerful before you act powerful. That is fantasy. Identity is a result, not a starting point. Most men sit around trying to find themselves. They analyze their feelings. They question their purpose. They wait for clarity. Meanwhile, the men who win are too busy executing to overthink. They understand a brutal reality. Action creates identity, not the other way around. If your daily behavior is weak, your identity will be weak. If your daily behavior is disciplined, your identity will shift accordingly. It's not complicated, it's just uncomfortable. Your brain is an evidence machine. It believes what you prove to it. If you skip workouts, procrastinate on work, and break promises to yourself, your mind gathers that data and builds a self-image around it. I'm inconsistent. I lack discipline. I'm not that guy. And once that identity forms, you start acting in alignment with it. You sabotage progress because it feels familiar. Now reverse it. You wake up early when you don't feel like it. You finish the task you said you would finish. You push through discomfort instead of escaping it. Your brain records that too. It begins building a new file. I execute. I follow through. I handle pressure. After enough repetitions, that identity becomes automatic. You don't have to convince yourself you're disciplined. You've seen it in action too many times to doubt it. The dangerous belief is thinking you need confidence before you move. That belief keeps men frozen. They say, once I feel ready, I'll start. Ready is a myth. Nobody feels ready to take on bigger responsibility, harder challenges, or higher standards. The readiness comes from movement, from engagement, from stepping into resistance before you feel equipped. Look at your life honestly. Where are you waiting to feel different before you act different? That's the trap. Feelings follow behavior. Behavior does not follow feelings. If you act weak, you will feel weak. If you act decisive, you will start to feel decisive. Identity is shaped by repetition of behavior under pressure, not by motivational speeches in your headphones. High-level performers understand this. They don't rely on internal emotion to dictate output. They build systems and standards that force action regardless of mood. And as those actions stack, their identity strengthens. They don't walk into rooms hoping to feel confident. They walk in knowing they've done the work. That certainty is built, not imagined. You cannot separate who you are from what you repeatedly do. If you repeatedly avoid hard conversations, you become the man who avoids conflict. If you repeatedly confront challenges, you become the man who handles them. Your habits are not small details. They are identity architects. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you align actions with higher standards. You start respecting yourself. Self-respect in yourself, respect is not given. It's earned through consistency. Every kept promise adds weight to your presence. Every broken promise chips away at your authority over your own life. And when you lose authority over yourself, you lose confidence in every room you enter. Stop trying to upgrade your mindset through thoughts alone. Upgrade your actions. Raise the standard of your daily behavior. Make decisions that reflect the man you want to become, even when it feels unnatural at first. The discomfort is proof you're stepping into a new identity. You don't magically become powerful. You behave your way into power. You don't suddenly discover confidence. You accumulate it through executed actions. If you want a stronger identity, stop analyzing it and start building it through daily, undeniable proof. The most dangerous voice in your life is not your competition. It's not your critics. It's not the world. It's the voice inside your own head. The private dialogue you repeat daily is either building a king or manufacturing a coward. And most men don't even realize they're sabotaging themselves because the weakness sounds reasonable, it sounds logical, it sounds justified. Pay attention to your internal language when things get difficult. When you're tired, when you're behind, when pressure hits, do you say, I can't do this right now? Do you say, I deserve a break? Do you say, this isn't fair? That's the vocabulary of someone negotiating with his lower self. Every time you entertain that negotiation, you lower your standard. Every time you lower your standard, you weaken your identity. The internal voice must be trained like a soldier. It must give orders, not suggestions. A weak mind asks, do I feel like it? A disciplined mind says, this gets done. There's no debate, no emotional committee meeting, no dramatic inner discussion, just execution. The tone you use internally matters. If your self-talk is soft, your behavior will be soft. Most people speak to themselves in ways they would never allow another man to speak to them. They tolerate excuses. They justify laziness. They sympathize with weakness. That internal softness leaks into posture, decisions, and standards, and over time it becomes visible. Your body language changes. Your confidence drops. You hesitate more. All because your internal language has no authority. Strong men build a private code. Short, direct, non-negotiable. When doubt appears, it's met with instruction. When fear surfaces, it's met with action. When excuses arise, they are cut off immediately. That doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you don't let emotion dictate command. You acknowledge difficulty and move anyway. That is control. Understand this clearly. Your brain believes repetition. If you repeatedly tell yourself you're tired, you will feel exhausted. If you repeatedly tell yourself you're not ready, you will hesitate. But if you repeatedly tell yourself through both words and actions that you handle pressure, your nervous system adapts. Your stress tolerance expands. Your confidence stabilizes. Language shapes physiology. There's also a deeper layer. Internal language determines identity alignment. If you claim you want power but internally say, maybe tomorrow, you are in conflict. That conflict drains energy, it creates guilt, it erodes certainty. When your internal voice matches your external standards, something shifts. You feel grounded, direct, stable. There is no contradiction between what you say and what you do. High-status men do not indulge in self-pity internally. They process setbacks strategically. They analyze mistakes without emotional collapse. They replace, why is this happening to me, with what's the next move. That shift alone separates leaders from followers. One mindset searches for comfort. The other searches for control. You must also eliminate sarcasm and self-deprecating humor in your internal dialogue. Calling yourself lazy, stupid, or incapable might seem harmless, but repetition wires it into identity. The brain does not understand irony. It understands patterns. Speak strength consistently and your behavior will rise to match it. The internal voice is your command center. If it is chaotic, your life will be chaotic. If it is disciplined, your actions will follow. Train it daily. Correct it immediately when it slips. Replace hesitation with instruction. Replace doubt with direction. Replace emotional negotiation with execution. Your external results will never exceed the authority of your internal language. If you want dominance in the world, you must first dominate the conversation happening in your own mind. If your mood controls your actions, you are not in charge of your life. It's that simple. You can talk about ambition, power, success, legacy. But if you only perform when you feel good, you're a slave to emotion. And slaves don't build empires. They react, they drift, they wait. Discipline is the line that separates men who command from men who comply. Impulse is immediate. Discipline is intentional. One is easy. The other is powerful. When you wake up and your first instinct is to check your phone, that's impulse. When you feel pressure and your instinct is to escape into distraction, that's impulse. When you're uncomfortable and reach for comfort, that's impulse. Every time you obey it, you reinforce weakness. You train your nervous system to chase relief instead of results. Discipline is the ability to pause between impulse and action and choose differently. That pause is everything. In that moment, your identity is decided. Do you move toward short-term pleasure or long-term strength? Do you protect comfort or build capacity? The disciplined man doesn't eliminate desire. He overrides it. He understands that feelings are temporary, but consequences are permanent. Most men underestimate how destructive small impulses are. One skipped workout, one delayed task, one unnecessary expense, 1 hour wasted. Individually, they seem harmless. Collectively, they shape your trajectory. Impulse compounds just like discipline does. The difference is one builds momentum upward, the other drags you down quietly until mediocrity feels normal. Control over impulse is control over self, and control over self is the foundation of authority. If you cannot control what you eat, what you watch, how you spend your time, or how you react under stress, how do you expect to control outcome? You don't rise to leadership through chaos. You rise to regulation. There is a misconception that discipline is restrictive, that it limits freedom. The opposite is true. Impulse limits freedom. Addiction limits freedom. Emotional reactivity limits freedom. Discipline expands it. When you control your habits, you control your schedule. When you control your reactions, you control your relationships. When you control your time, you control your progress. That is real leverage. The disciplined man builds routines not because he lacks creativity, but because he values stability. He knows that consistency removes friction. When decisions are automated by standard, energy is preserved for higher level thinking. There is no daily debate about whether he trains, works, studies, or executes. It's already decided. That eliminates weakness at the source. Emotional volatility destroys credibility. If you are productive one day and disengaged the next, focused in the morning and distracted by afternoon, confident in public but uncertain in private, you become unpredictable. Not in a powerful way, in a fragile way. Discipline stabilizes you. It creates reliability, and reliability builds trust from others and from yourself. Impulse thrives in environments without structure. That's why your environment must support discipline. Remove easy distractions. Set clear expectations. Limit access to what weakens you. Discipline is not just mental toughness, it's strategic design. You create conditions where the disciplined choice is the default choice. The truth is harsh but necessary. If you repeatedly surrender to impulse, you train yourself to avoid pressure. You shrink your tolerance for discomfort. Over time, even minor challenges feel overwhelming. But when you consistently override impulse, your stress threshold rises. Hard tasks feel manageable. Chaos feels navigable. You develop calm under pressure because you've practiced control daily. Power begins with self-regulation, not motivation, not inspiration, regulation. The ability to act according to principle instead of emotion. When discipline governs your behavior, your life stops swinging between extremes. It becomes steady, directed, intentional, and from that stability, real dominance is built. You don't suffer from low confidence, you suffer from broken promises to yourself. That's the reality most men refuse to face. You say you'll wake up early, you don't. You say you'll train consistently, you skip. You say you'll finish the project, you delay it. Then you look in the mirror and wonder why you don't feel powerful. Why would you? You've trained yourself not to trust your own word. Confidence is not a personality trait. It's accumulated evidence. It's the result of repeated proof that you do what you say you will do. When you consistently follow through, your mind has no argument against you. It has data, it has history, it has receipts. That's where unshakable certainty comes from. Every promise you make to yourself is a contract. When you break it, even in private, you damage your internal authority. Nobody else sees it, but you do, and that quiet awareness chips away at your presence. It shows up in hesitation, and second guessing, and subtle insecurity. You can pretend to be confident externally, but internally, you know whether you're reliable or not. Most people underestimate how deeply self-trust affects performance. When you trust yourself, you take bigger risks, you pursue harder goals, you step into pressure without panic because you've seen yourself handle difficulty before. When you don't trust yourself, you play small, you avoid exposure, you stay in safe territory because you're unsure whether you'll follow through under stress. There's a reason high performers carry themselves differently. It's not arrogance, it's internal alignment. They know they execute, they know they keep commitments. That knowledge creates calm. It stabilizes them in chaos. They don't need constant reassurance because their past behavior already validated their capability. Think about the compounding effect of kept promises. One day of discipline builds a small amount of self-respect. 10 days build momentum. 30 days start to shift identity. A year of consistency transforms you, not just externally, but internally. You walk differently. You speak differently. You decide faster. Because you're no longer guessing who you are. You've proven it repeatedly. Now consider the opposite. One broken promise seems insignificant, but repeated over weeks and months, it builds a pattern. That pattern becomes belief. I always fall off. I can't stay consistent. Those beliefs are not random thoughts. They are conclusions drawn from your own behavior. And once that narrative forms, it becomes harder to break because your brain expects failure. The solution is not grand gestures. It's smaller, non-negotiable commitments executed daily. Start with standards you can sustain, then expand them. Each kept promise strengthens your internal structure. Each follow-through adds weight to your self-image. Over time, you stop needing motivation because you refuse to violate your own word. There is also power in restraint. When you promise yourself you won't engage in a certain habit and you resist it under pressure, that victory builds more confidence than external praise ever could. You prove that your impulses do not control you. That proof is transformative. It changes how you perceive yourself in every area. Confidence built on compliments is fragile. Confidence built on results is stable. Confidence built on kept promises is permanent. Nobody can take it from you because it's grounded in behavior, not opinion. If you want to feel powerful, stop chasing validation and start honoring your commitments. Keep your word when it's inconvenient. Keep it when nobody would know if you didn't. Keep it when it costs you comfort. The more you align your actions with your standards, the less doubt will exist in your system. And when doubt fades, certainty takes its place. One intense day means nothing at the next 5 or week. That's the truth most people avoid. You don't build a powerful body with one brutal workout. You don't build wealth with one productive sprint. You don't build discipline with one strong decision. Intensity feels powerful because it's dramatic. Consistency is powerful because it compounds. There's a reason amateurs chase intensity. It gives them a temporary high. It makes them feel superior for a moment. They post about it, they talk about it, they relive it, but then they disappear. They vanish when the excitement fades. Professionals don't rely on adrenaline. They rely on standards. They show up whether it's exciting or not. Consistency is not sexy. It's repetitive, predictable, sometimes boring. And that's exactly why most people can't sustain it. They are addicted to emotional spikes. They want transformation to feel cinematic. But real progress is mechanical. It's built in small, repeated actions stacked over time. It's the man who trains 300 days a year, not the man who trains 7 days straight and quits. Understand how momentum actually works. When you show up daily, even at 80%, you create rhythm. That rhythm reduces resistance. Tasks become easier to start. Discipline becomes less draining. You conserve mental energy because you're no longer debating whether to act. You simply continue the pattern. That rhythm is a weapon. Now look at the damage inconsistency creates. Every time you break the chain, restarting feels heavier. Guilt creeps in. Self-doubt grows. The task feels larger than it actually is. You waste more energy recovering from lapses than you would have maintaining steady effort. That's the hidden cost of chasing intensity without structure. Consistency also sharpens skill. Repeated exposure to difficulty builds competence. Competence builds confidence. When you practice daily, your margin of error decreases. Your execution becomes cleaner. Your decisions become faster. The gap between intention and action shrinks. That precision is what separates serious performers from emotional amateurs. There is another layer people ignore. Consistency signals identity. When you act the same disciplined way every day, your brain stops seeing it as effort. It starts seeing it as who you are. You're no longer trying to be focused. You're focused. You're no longer trying to be disciplined. You're disciplined. Identity locks in through repetition, not intensity. The world rewards reliability, not occasional brilliance. Businesses scale through predictable output. Athletes win through repeated training cycles. Leaders gain trust through steady behavior. If you are inconsistent, you are unstable. And instability limits opportunity. No one builds something meaningful on an unstable foundation. Most men overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. They burn out chasing short-term domination and ignore long-term mastery. Mastery is quiet. It's incremental. It's built through thousands of small decisions aligned in the same direction. If you want leverage, aim for sustainability. Create systems you can repeat daily. Lower the emotional temperature and raise the standard of execution. Show up even when the performance is not perfect. Imperfect consistency will always outperform perfect bursts, followed by collapse. When you commit to consistency, you eliminate drama. You remove dependency on motivation. You stop riding emotional waves. You build something stable, controlled, and scalable. Over time, that stability turns into authority. And authority built on repetition is far more dangerous than temporary intensity ever could be. In the end, mental strength isn't something you discover. It's something you construct. Brick by brick, day by day, action by action. And if you're not willing to show up daily, then accept your position. Accept mediocrity. Accept weakness. But don't lie to yourself and say you want more. The world doesn't reward potential, it rewards consistency. So decide who you are. Speak the language of discipline through action. Show up daily. Or step aside and let stronger men take your place.